The moon is disappearing, not slow, but fast. A shadow's eating it from the left side, and everybody in the city can see it. There's no explanation that makes this okay. The king is in danger. The gods are under attack. And somewhere in the temple district, a priest picks up 2 mallets. The drum is enormous, bronze. It's in the shape of a bull. It takes 2 men to carry it. The skin stretched across the top came from an animal that was whispered to before it was sacrificed. Specific words, prayers, spoken directly into its ear. This instrument is not a tool. It's Babylonian theology. This drum is alive. It has a name. It has a ritual birth certificate. It is a deity made of metal and breath and its intention. And when the priest strikes it, you can feel it in your sternum, in the back of your eyes, in a place that we don't have a name for. That feeling is physics, and today we're going to talk about exactly what kind. This is the Lilissu, the lamentation drum of ancient Babylon. It was a very acoustically sophisticated instrument, and it was built by a civilization that figured out the math or the theory of sound roughly 2,000 years before the people that we actually credit for it. Let's go back to Babylon. Now, I've talked about drums before on this channel. The flat shamanic frame drum, it's simple, directional, built to carry rhythm across a step. The Lilissu is a completely different kind of drum. This is a kettle drum, which means instead of an open back, it has an enclosed body, a deep bronze bowl, curved like a hemisphere. And that shape changes the way the sound behaves inside it. When you strike the membrane of a flat drum, the sound radiates outward and then is just gone. But when you strike the top of a kettle drum, the sound wave travels down into that bowl of air and gets trapped. It bounces off the curved interior and it comes back up, reinforcing itself. The bowl is acting like a Helmholtz resonator. It's kind of the same thing as when you blow across the top of a bottle and you get that low, hollow tone. The trapped air has a resonant frequency. It wants to vibrate at a specific pitch, and the bronze body rings with it, longer, purer, and at a much lower frequency than any flat drum can produce. This is how the Lilissu could generate infrasound, frequencies below 20 hertz, below what you can hear as a human being. You can't hear infrasound, but your body detects it. The vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem all the way down to your chest and your abdomen, responds to pressure changes. Your inner ear fluid shifts, and it can feel the pressure change. 19 hertz is the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. At that frequency, constant low-pressure vibrations can cause your eyes to oscillate. This makes visual artifacts. You have real visions, flickering at the edge of vision, shapes that aren't quite there, a feeling of being watched. To the Babylonians, those shapes were demons. So there was this 3-foot bronze bowl tuned to a low, low frequency, pointed at a crowd of people who were already terrified because the moon was disappearing, right? And their bodies responded the way a human body responds to 19 hertz, which is with awe, with dread, and with the sense that something big and unseen is here. It's acoustic engineering. They just didn't have the same vocabulary as we have now. Language changes over time and over translations. But they had something else. They had thousands of years of observation, passed down through initiation, practice. They knew what the drum did. They built the whole ritual around that. And the bull wasn't chosen by accident either. The black bull in Babylonian cosmology was associated with the storm god, Adad, thunder, rain, the voice from the sky. When the priests whispered into that animal's ear before the sacrifice, They believed they were capturing its voice inside the bronze. From a purely acoustic standpoint, they were actually selecting an animal for the specific tensile properties of its hide. A mature black bull produces a very thick, dense membrane. Dense membranes resonate at lower frequencies. Low frequencies travel further and they penetrate deeper. They were choosing the right speaker cone, and they dressed up that choice in theology because that's the language they had. So the instrument is born in a ritual. It takes months. The casting of the bronze, the preparation of the skin, the incantations at each stage. Every step is documented in cuneiform. They were not casual about this because to them, a misbuilt Lilissu wasn't just a bad drum. It was a broken deity that couldn't hold back the dark. How do you tune a universe? Not a guitar, but a whole universe to reach the gods, because that's what the Babylonian priests believed that they were doing. The math they used to do it is still running today inside every clock on earth, including the one in your phone right now. The Babylonians counted in base 60. We count in base 10, 10 fingers, 10 digits. When we hit 10, we start a new column. It's simple but not really musical. Base 10 divides clean by 2 and 5, and that's mostly it. 60 divides clean by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. That's a huge number. The Babylonians chose it or discovered it, depending on how you think about these things, because it made the math come out clean. No remainers, no rounding, pure ratios, and pure ratios are exactly what music is made out of. I mean it like this. An octave, the same note higher, is a frequency ratio of 2 to 1. Double the frequency, same note. A perfect fifth, the most stable resonant interval in music, the one that feels like a resolution is happening, closure, it's a ratio of 3 to 2. A perfect fourth is 4 to 3. These are acoustic physics. These ratios produce harmonies because of how the overtone series works. And if you watched my video on overtones, you already know exactly what I mean by that. The Babylonians knew these ratios. They mapped them. They encoded them in cuneiform on clay tablets that are sitting in museums right now. And they used base 60 math to calculate them with a precision that the Western world wouldn't really figure out again for roughly 2,000 years. We call what they were doing just intonation. The tuning system most of us hear today in pop music and piano music and almost everything produced in a recording studio is called equal temperament. It divides the octave into 12 equal parts, and it's technically out of tune. Every interval except that octave is very slightly wrong, adjusted by a tiny mathematical fudge called a cent. Because perfectly pure ratios don't divide an octave into 12 equal parts. They don't come out even, so Western music made a compromise. It flattened and stretched the intervals just enough to make keyboard instruments convenient. The Babylonians made no such compromise. Their intervals were mathematically exact, integer ratios calculated in base 60, producing frequencies that locked together. Their music was in tune with itself in a way that ours technically is not. Once that was locked down, they paired it with the sky. They looked up. They saw the 7 wandering stars, our Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the sun, the moon, and they watched the way their patterns moved across the sky. And those orbital patterns have ratios. The time it takes Jupiter to complete one orbit relates to Saturn's orbit in a ratio that, when you count it in base 60, produces an interval very close to a fifth. They wrote it down. The cosmos was speaking. It was a harmonic progression. These planets were notes in a chord so large it required the entire solar system to play it. And the Lilissu drum, tuned to its specific bronze frequency, was both warding off demons and playing its part in this chord. Now, a lot of people hear this and immediately say Pythagoras, the music of the spheres, Greek philosophy. But let's go back to the timing for a second. Pythagoras was born around 570 BCE. The Babylonian mathematical tablets that encode these same harmonic ratios, the ones that document just intonation and map musical intervals to cosmic movements, predate this guy by over 1,000 years. The Hurrian hymn, the oldest notated piece of music ever discovered, is from roughly 1400 BCE. It's not Greek. It comes from the ancient Near East, from a culture directly adjacent to Babylon, using the same theoretical framework. Pythagoras traveled. He studied in Egypt. He almost certainly encountered this while he was on the road. A lot of traveling and cultural intermixing was going on back then. The Greeks even referred to their 7-note scale as the Chaldean scale. Chaldea was another name for the region of Babylon. The Chaldeans were wise men, scholars, astronomers. I'm not saying the Greeks didn't contribute anything. Of course they did. I'm saying the origin story that we inherited is not giving me any closure. To sit down and say these things are not separate, they are the same thing, expressed at different scales. I'm not sure who that was, but I know from the Hurrian hymn that it was not Greece. These artifacts put it in Babylon, for now, in a mud brick temple, in the dark, watching the moon disappear, beating on a bronze bowl that hummed at a frequency below the threshold of hearing, and then writing it all down in base 60, the same numbers we still use to measure time. 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 360 degrees. In addition to ancient history, that's also your alarm clock. Now, why do these temples sound like they do? Symbolically and visually, they're fabulous. But when you're standing inside it, when something's being played or sung or struck, it kind of completes this holistic experience. Because the people who built these temples were making choices about both visuals and acoustics in order to connect with the gods, and gods deserved the best. And Babylon is one of the many cool examples of this. Babylonian temples had walls of mud brick sealed with bitumen, which is dense and kind of like tar. It occurs naturally in that region, and they used it for everything from waterproofing boats to cementing foundations. From a modern acoustic engineering standpoint, mud brick and bitumen have very specific sound absorption coefficients, which is a technical way of saying they absorb high frequencies and they reflect low ones. So the building acted like a sound filter. High frequencies in, low frequencies back out, and amplified. Guess what frequency range the Lilissu is in? Now add the courtyard. The outdoor ritual spaces, these big open plazas where the people gathered for ceremonies. They were enclosed on multiple sides by walls that measured very specific, documented dimensions. And when you enclose a space with parallel walls, a standing wave happens. If the wavelength of a sound matches the distance between two opposing walls, that sound doesn't just bounce off. It locks in. It reinforces itself. Every echo adds to the last one. The sound builds itself without any additional energy being put into it. These people had centuries of experience with observation. They knew which courtyards made the drum feel like it was coming from everywhere all at once. They knew which wall distances made the priests' chanting seem to get bigger and multiply. They knew through accumulated practice what measurements produced the effect that they wanted. and they built to those dimensions in their sacred buildings. I talked about this same principle in my shaman video. The temple complex at Chavín de Juntar in Peru, where archaeologists discovered the inner sanctum was built with a stone duct and functioned as an acoustic filter. A 3,000-year-old concert hall engineered for its acoustics. Stanford researchers called it a neurological hacking device. Babylon was doing the same thing. Different continent, different materials, different mythology. And this is what is happening all over the world, all over the planet throughout history. And I can't understand sometimes why we seem to think that ancient people were not smart. It's kind of snobbish. It's the same physics, but the Babylonian version had their own unique thing going on. They had the documented math written down in base 60. They could calculate the relationship between the dimensions of a space and the frequencies it would amplify. They would look at real blueprints and predict what the room would sound like before they laid the bricks. Think about what that means. The Lilissu, this bronze bowl, the membrane, the infrasonic frequency it produced. These were parameters and design inputs. The architecture was the amplification system and the drum was the signal source. In modern audio terms, this is a giant subwoofer cabinet. The courtyard was a listening room. It was a full-range sound system built from brick and bronze and bitumen. A historic version of a mixing board. We just do things smaller now. And the congregation standing in that plaza, feeling the Lilissu in their bones, hearing the chanting multiply off the walls, watching the moon disappear. They experienced religion and spirituality in a whole different way than we define it today. Belief held at arm's length, memory recited doctrines. They were inside their instrument. The whole city was an instrument. Ancient Egypt did the same thing, built giant versions of spiritual experiences that triggered all of your senses. So we know what the Lilissu was made of. We know the math that tuned it. We know the temple sound setup. Now let's talk about what it actually did to the people standing in that courtyard. A 3-foot bronze bowl tuned to a specific frequency in a closed, amplified space, aimed at a crowd of people who were already in a state of fear because the moon was being eaten. That bowl was producing a measurable, documentable, biological response in every single body present. The demons were real. They were just made of pressure waves. And the priests knew how to summon them. They used it to do something that a modern sound engineer with a full rack of equipment would find genuinely difficult to replicate. They made an entire city feel the presence of something beyond itself, on purpose, with a drum. Now, I live in a part of the world where the word Babylon gets used as a warning. I'm in the Bible Belt. It's shorthand for destruction, fallen city, sin, dangerous place, a symbol for everything corrupt and ungodly. I find that interesting. Because what archaeology shows is a civilization so mathematically precise that the numerical system they developed to map the stars, tell time, is still quietly embedded in your daily life. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle. That's not a fallen civilization. That's the foundation that almost everything we've got is built on. The Lilissu drum, to the people who built it, who tuned it, who carried it into that moonless courtyard and struck it with everything they had, it was a light. It was a frequency that kept the dark away. The mathematical precision of its construction was the proof that the cosmos was ordered, knowable, and on their side. They could quell their fear of the eclipse because they had the math, the intellect, the drum, and the temple. And they knew with confidence exactly what frequency drives the darkness back. Some things don't change.